this lesson, we will continue with our last type of sentence, the compound complex sentence. To be able to build the last sentence type, it's important to know all the components of a sentence very well. So let's review what you already know about sentences. We've talked about a phrase, a group of words with no subject and verb which cannot stand alone as a sentence. For example, in your field. A dependent clause, a group of words which has a subject and verb but does not express a complete thought and cannot stand alone as a sentence. For example, when one is looking for work. An independent clause, a group of words which has a subject and verb which expresses a complete thought and can stand alone as a sentence. Networking can be a rewarding experience. Compound sentences which consist of two or more independent clauses that are joined together in a variety of ways. Networking can be a rewarding experience and it can raise your profile in your field. Finally, a complex sentence, a combination of one independent clause which contains the main idea of the sentence and one or more dependent clauses. When one is looking for work, networking can be a rewarding experience. The last sentence type is the compound complex sentence. A compound complex sentence consists of two or more independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses. Therefore, we can combine all of the components of a sentence together to form the compound complex sentence. Note that in technical writing, this type of sentence will not be used as often as the others because it's important to keep communication brief and to the point. However, we use this sentence type when a number of clauses are related to each other and we want to show the intricate relationship between them. Have a look. When one is looking for work, networking can be a rewarding experience and it can raise your profile in your field. A compound complex sentence combines the compound and the complex sentence. The compound part means that it has two or more independent clauses. The complex part means that it has at least one dependent clause. And this sentence also includes a phrase. One of the easiest ways to form compound complex sentences is to first break down the sentences separately before joining them together. For example, let's take these two sentences. Here we have a complex sentence with a dependent clause, when there is a rainstorm, and an independent clause, the streets in this neighborhood constantly flood. And we have another independent clause which stands alone as a simple sentence. City planners are trying to find a solution to this. Now let's join these two sentences together. How do we join them? Well, there are a few ways. We can join them the same way we join two independent clauses in a compound sentence, using a comma and a coordinating conjunction. When there is a rainstorm, the streets in this neighborhood constantly flood. So, city planners are trying to find a solution to this. We can also join them together using a semicolon and a conjunctive adverb and a comma to show a result. When there is a rainstorm, the streets in this neighborhood constantly flood. Therefore, city planners are trying to find a solution to this. And we can also join the two independent clauses together simply using a semicolon. When there is a rainstorm, the streets in the neighborhood constantly flood. City planners are trying to find a solution to this. But remember that you can only use this method if the two sentences have a clear and close relationship. Let's look at another way to build a complex sentence. We'll use the same two sentences we've been using. This time we'll add another dependent clause to the sentence. When there is a rainstorm, the streets in this neighborhood constantly flood, even though city planners are trying to find a solution to this. Here, we added even though to make city planners are trying to find a solution to this into a dependent clause. But remember that the definition of a compound complex sentence is two or more independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses. Therefore, if you make this simple sentence into a dependent clause, you have formed a complex sentence and not a compound complex sentence. Note that even though this is a good way to join sentences together, the original meaning of the sentence has changed. Compare the two sentences that we have formed again. When there is a rainstorm, the streets in this neighborhood constantly flood, so city planners are trying to find a solution to this. When there is a rainstorm, the streets in this neighborhood constantly flood, even though city planners are trying to find a solution to this. While one is a compound complex sentence which shows a result, the other is a complex sentence which shows a contrast. It's important to consider what the relationship is between the sentences you are writing and what you want to emphasize to your reader. Also note that the order of the sentences can be changed, but you have to be careful that the meaning remains the same, and also that you have paid attention to correct punctuation. We added this dependent clause to the end of the complex sentence, and it was not necessary to add a comma. However, we could add this dependent clause to the beginning of this complex sentence, and then we would have to add a comma. One last thing to note is about pronouns. When we move the dependent clause first, it's a little strange to keep to this because the reader doesn't know what this refers to. So in this sentence, it's better to take it out when the even though comes first. So also consider the pronouns you're using in the sentence when combining them together. You want to make sure that your pronouns make sense in the sentence. Even though city planners are trying to find a solution when there is a rainstorm, the streets in this neighborhood constantly flood. Let's look at some more examples of compound complex sentences and consider how they have been formed. You can pause the video as we go through them and think about the parts of the sentence. Here's one. The calls for service requests are so numerous that we can't keep up, and clients are beginning to notice the delay. Here we can see another complex sentence. The calls for service requests are so numerous that we can't keep up. To this, the writer has added another independent clause, joined with a comma and coordinating conjunction and. Clients are beginning to notice the delay. Another one. My colleague recommended a book to read, but I can't find it in local bookstores because it is so popular. Here, two independent clauses come first, which are conjoined by a comma and the coordinating conjunction but. Then it is followed by a dependent clause of reason, because it is so popular. Here's another example. When we make sentences, it's important to use a variety of sentence types so that the reader does not get bored. Well, could you identify the sentence parts? Aha! If you did, then you know that this is not a compound complex sentence. Well, we can see that there's actually only one independent clause. The other clauses are dependent. Therefore, this is not a compound complex sentence because remember that a compound complex sentence needs two independent clauses. Again, this is a complex sentence. So we can see that there are two main ways to form the compound complex sentence. Independent clause, dependent clause, independent clause, or independent clause, independent clause, dependent clause. We've looked at two common sentence patterns, but there are actually even more because the method of forming compound complex sentences is how we can form extremely long sentences in English in a grammatical way. Look at this long sentence and try to break down this sentence into its sentence parts. Again, you can pause the video while you try this. Many people don't know the difference between stocks and bonds as they seem similar. However, stocks give you partial ownership in a company, and bonds are a loan from you to a company or government. Could you find them all? This compound complex sentence is composed of numerous independent and dependent clauses, but they are all joined together correctly using proper conjoining strategies. There are a few things to be careful of when trying to form the compound complex sentence. Look at the sentence below and try to find the error. When teenagers work, they gain independence from their families, they get the spending money they need to keep up with their peers. Did you spot the error? Yes, you've seen this before. Again, this kind of error is called a comma splice, where two independent clauses are joined together using only a comma. This is why it's important to identify the types of clauses in the sentence before joining them. If we know that they are both independent clauses, we know we can only conjoin them using a comma and coordinating conjunction, a semicolon and conjunctive adverb, or a semicolon. How about this one? Well-qualified graduates with some work experience find it fairly easy to enter the job market. People who leave school with no qualifications find it very hard. Can you find the mistake? Remember a run-on sentence? A run-on sentence is when two independent clauses are joined without any punctuation or conjunctions at all. Again, it's important to revisit what kinds of clauses are being joined. Is it a dependent clause and an independent clause? Use a comma. Is it two independent clauses? Use conjunctions and commas or semicolons and conjunctive adverbs or semicolons. The only way that two clauses can be joined together without punctuation is if the first clause is independent and a dependent clause follows. In this case, we will join this independent clause with a comma and a coordinating conjunction. And that's it. Congratulations and great work for learning all the different sentence types. By using a variety of sentence types in your writing, you will be able to write in a clear and precise manner. Thanks for listening.